Hi guys, it's John Jeffery here, director and producer and writer of the film Godtech. The reason why I'm coming to you today is because about a few weeks ago there was articles in the news that they had discovered some bones of giants in Greece. It's not the first time they discovered giant bones in Greece and other places, and as usual immediately they came and they decided that it was a hoax, and if it was broadcasted to be a hoax, then it's a hoax. It doesn't matter whether you can find the evidence of the hoax. The fact that they tell you it's a hoax, it means it's a hoax. But I want to tell you all the times when they have publicly declared that they had found bones of a human being that is over 12 foot, I think it is. I looked up just the articles that were showing people who were at least 12 foot tall, which is ridiculously tall if you think about it. I've got images which I'm going to be showing you throughout the way, not necessarily relating to the article itself, just really to show you that there are photographic evidence of these things right back to when photographs first existed. And then recordings of these things before then, news articles. Now, I don't really understand what the big deal is about whether there were giants on the earth before or not, because if you think about history, even from an evolutional point of view, we should be giants at some point, because in reality, dinosaurs were from the creatures we see now, which are small, were big back then according to science. So under a scientific answer to things, surely you must believe that the men could have been bigger back in the past, because animals were bigger back in the past. Just seems logical to me. However, as a Christian, I don't buy into that at all. I know that according to the Bible, there were giants on the earth, even after the flood, right through history. And also, they say that giants were still in the present. So, what counts as a giant? I say at least 12 foot. 10 foot maybe. But 10 foot would be gigantic. But 12 foot to me would be the minimum requirement of a giant. But they can go much higher than that. Let me read out some of these articles to you. So, in an old book entitled... Oh, by the way, I took these articles from a number of websites. So, you might hear me quote off a website. That's not me. I'll give links at the bottom to the website pages, so I'm not copyrighted in any way at all. Right, so, in an old book entitled History and Antiquities of Allerdale, there is an account of a giant found in Cumberland, England, at an unknown date in the Middle Ages, called A True Report of Hugh Hodson of Thornway. It states, the said giant was buried 4 yards deep in the ground, which is now a cornfield. He was 4 yards and a half long, and was in complete armour, his sword and battle axe lying by him. His teeth were 6 inches long and 2 inches broad. The bones of a 12-foot man were dug up in 1833 by a group of soldiers at Lompoc Rancho, California. The skeleton was surrounded by giant weapons, and the skull featured a double row of teeth. Yet another giant was unearthed in 1891 when workmen in Crittenden, Arizona, excavated a huge stone coffin that had evidently once held the body of a man 12 feet tall. A carving on the granite case indicated that he had 6 toes. And by the way, 6 toes and 6 fingers are a common thing in these giants, as well as having double rows of teeth. But we'll take that to one side for now and see where it goes. A living giant was sighted in the little village of Buffalo Mills, Pennsylvania on August 19th, 1973. Quite new then. Obviously a lot of witnesses of this one. A man at least 9 foot. 9 foot. Nowadays people can get up to 7 foot, so 9 foot doesn't feel so gigantic to me. 9 feet tall, strode down the main street of the village dressed in strange clothing, which appeared to be made of some sort of shimmering material. He gazed at the startled townspeople in a dark, penetrating way, and then loped off casually into oblivion. In July 1877, 4 prospectors were looking for gold and silver outcroppings in a desolate, hilly area near the head of Spring Valley, not far from Eureka, Nevada. Scanning the rocks, one of the men spotted something peculiar projecting from a high ledge. Climbing up to get a better look, the prospector was surprised to find a human leg bone and kneecap sticking out of the solid rock. He called to his companions, and together they dislodged the oddity with picks. Realizing they had a most unusual find, the men brought it into Eureka, where it was placed on display. The stone in which the bones were embedded was a hard, dark red quartzite, and the bones themselves were almost black with carbonization, indicative of great age. When the surrounding stone was carefully chipped away, the specimen was found to be composed of a leg bone broken off 4 inches above the knee. The kneecap and joint, the lower leg bones, and the complete bones of the foot. Several medical doctors examined the remains and were convinced that anatomically they had indeed once belonged to a human being, a very modern-looking one. But an intriguing aspect of the bones was their size. From knee to heel, they measured 39 inches. Their owner in life had thus stood over 12 feet tall. Compounding the mystery further was the fact that the rock in which the bones were found was dated geologically to the era of the dinosaurs. Wow, there you go. The Jurassic, over 185 million years old. The local papers ran several stories on the marvellous find, and 2 museums sent investigators to see if any more of the skeleton could be located. Unfortunately, nothing else but the leg and foot existed in the rock. In 1833, soldiers digging at Lompoc Rancho, California, discovered a male skeleton 12 feet tall. The skeleton was surrounded by caved shelves, stone axes, and other artifacts. The skeleton had double rows of upper and lower teeth. Unfortunately, this body was secretly buried because the local Indians became upset about the remains. So we have no evidence physical, just a journal of that one. A 9-foot 8-inch skeleton was excavated from a mount near Brewersville, Indiana in 1879. During World War II, author Ivan T. Sanderson tells of how his crew were bulldozing through some sedimentary rock when it stumbled upon what appeared to be a graveyard. In it were crania that measured from 22 to 24 inches from the base to the crown, nearly 3 times as large as an adult human skull. Had the creatures to whom these skulls belonged to been properly proportioned, they undoubtedly would have been at least 12 feet tall or taller. Ivan T. Sanderson, a well-known zoologist and a frequent guest on the Johnny Carson's Tonight Show in the 60s, usually with an exotic animal with a pangolin or a lemur, once related a curious story about a letter he received regarding an engineer who was stationed on an Aleutian island of Shemia during World War II. While building under an airship, his crew bulldozed a group of hills and discovered under several sedimentary layers what appeared to be human remains. The Alaskan mound was in fact a graveyard of gigantic human remains, consisting of crania and long leg bones. The crania measured from 22 to 24 inches from base to crown. Since an adult skull normally measures from 8 inches from back to front, such a large crania would imply an immense size for a normally proportioned human. Furthermore, every skull was said to have been neatly trepanned, a process of cutting a hole in the upper portion of the skull. Sanderson tried to gather further proof, eventually receiving a letter from another member of the unit who confirmed the report. The letters both indicated that the Smithsonian Institute had collected the remains, yet nothing else was heard. Sanderson seemed convinced that the Smithsonian Institute had received the bizarre relics, but wondered why would they not release the data. He asks, "Is it that these people cannot face rewriting all the textbooks?" In South Africa, a giant footprint of a woman measuring over 4 feet long has been carbon dated at approximately 9 million years old, pointing to the probability of this being a female human-like species, foot. Proportionally, the two-legged being would need to be some 30 feet tall. The local African people commonly refer to this as a highly revered and sacred site. Near Crittenden, Arizona, in 1891, workmen excavating for a commercial building came upon a huge stone sarcophagus, 8 feet below the surface. The contractor called in expert help, and the sarcophagus was opened to reveal a granite mummy case, which has once held a body of a human being, more than 12 feet tall, a human with 6 toes, according to the carving on the case. But the body had been buried so many thousands of years that it had long turned to dust, which tells us that there were giants on the earth. The excavation of a dozen skeletons 8 to 12 feet tall around the world shocked archaeologists. These skeletons were positively human. Some of these skeletal remains are on Maui in lava caves near Alupalakua and Olowalu. An example of this is the mysterious disappearance of more than 50 perfectly kept, gigantic, antediluvian skeletons between 10 to 14 feet tall found in a cave in Arizona. According to a press clipping dated Nayarit, Mexico, May 14, 1926, Captains D.W. Page and F.W. de Valda discovered the bones of a race of giants who averaged over 10 feet in height. Local legends state that they came from Ecuador. So also, with a report from the Washington Post, June 22, 1925, and the New York Herald Tribune, June 21, 1925. So you can look those up. A mining party, it is reported, found skeletons measuring 10 to 12 feet, with feet 18 to 20 inches long, near Sisoquish, Mexico. The Los Angeles Times, in October 2nd, 1927, says that explorers in Mexico located large human bones near Tepextla, indicating a race of a giant size. In the late 1950s, during road construction in Homs, southeast Turkey, many tombs of giants were indeed unearthed. These tombs were 4 meters long, and when they entered in 2 cases, the human thigh bones were measured to be 47.24 inches in length. They calculated that the person who owned this femur probably stood at 14 to 16 feet tall. A case of this bone is actually seen at the Creationist Museum in Texas. So you can go there, have a look. A set of 3 huge footprints was discovered near Mulgua, south of Penrith, New South Wales. These prints, each measuring 2 foot long and 7 inches across the toes, are 6 foot apart, indicating the stride of the 12-foot giant who left them. These prints were preserved by volcanic lava and ash flows which occurred millions of years before man is supposed to have appeared on the Australian continent, if you believe evolution theory. Noel Reeves found monstrous footprints near Kempsey, New South Wales, in sandstone beds on the upper Macleay River. One print shows toes 4 inches long, and the total toe span is 10 inches, suggesting that the owner of the print may have been 17 feet tall. In Old River Gravels, near Bathurst, New South Wales, huge stone artefacts, clubs, pounders, advers, chisels, knives and hand axes, all of tremendous weight, lie scattered over a wide area. These weigh anything from 8, 10, 15 to 21 and 25 pounds. Implementing which only men of tremendous proportions could possibly have made and used. Estimates for actual size of these men range from 10 to 12 feet tall and over, weighing from 500 to 600 pounds. A fossicker searching the Winburndale River north of Bathurst discovered a large quarter-sized fossil human molar tooth, far too big for any modern human man. A similar find was made near Dubbo in New South Wales. There was a race or group of people found in Australia called Meganthropus by anthropologists. These people were of a very large size, estimated between 7 to 12 feet tall, depending on what source you read. These people were found with mega-tall artifacts. 4 jaw fragments and thousands of teeth have been found in China of Gigantopithecus blacki, named after the discoverer. Based on the size of the teeth and the depth of the jaws, its size has been estimated at around 10 feet and as tall as 12 feet and weighing 1,200 pounds. 5 skulls were found that still exist in Inca, Peru and Mérida, Mexico. They have a brain cavity area ranging from 2200 cc and 3200 cc. Modern humans average 1450 cc. In size, with the largest human skull to date at 1980 cc, all these skulls have Neanderthal characteristics. They are huge in size and come from an unknown species according to science. In fact, according to science, they do not exist at all, but for the fact they are viewable today in a museum. Well, I hope you found that very interesting. I find it fascinating, this stuff. If there's so much evidence out there, how can people not believe it? How can people believe what they're told that, oh yes, it's another hoax. Oh yes, it's another hoax. Oh yes, it's another hoax. People dig this stuff up. They find the bones. They take photos of themselves right back to the past with the bones, and then the bones disappear and they say, oh, it was all a hoax. Well, if it's a hoax, why do they need to hide the bones? Honestly, show us the hoax bones. Show us that it's a hoax. Show us how the bones were made. Show us all this stuff. But they don't. They just say it's a hoax and everyone just buys it's hoax. It's not right, is it? And do you know what? The weird thing is, they say that these are millions of years old, but according to evolutionist theory who believe in a flood, if the flood happened and wiped out the giants and they were all burnt up, buried under the sediments, well, it just proves the flood. And the dinosaurs, most of them were wiped out during the flood. There were people that were giants after the flood. Just because they didn't get in the ark doesn't mean people didn't survive. God might have tried to wipe out the world with a flood, but someone could still float on a piece of wood. And a giant, I think, could probably handle it. The thing is, we don't know the whole history, we just know the history of the Jewish people. And the flood happened, that God's idea was to wipe out all evil in the world. So let's just wipe the world and fresh. And, you know, they say, well, what if the ark sank? Yeah, I think God understands how arks work. I think God understands how boats work. I think God understands how waves work. He created the world. He wasn't stupid. He gave Noah 800 years to build the thing. He had plenty of time. And someone asked me, why don't you think that other people got on the ark? Well, according to the Bible, people didn't believe there was going to be a flood. They thought Noah had lost his mind. They thought he was the crazy old man building a boat in the middle of the desert for 800 years. I mean, you're not going to be hanging around. And when the storms finally came, he'd already locked up the boat. People couldn't get in the boat then, could they? Still the size of the boat. You should see the replica built in Kentucky to size. It's massive. You know, people wouldn't have been able to just climb up the sides and get into the boat. Yeah, it's ludicrous. Okay, of course. Also, think about it. If there was no water and they were in the desert, they wouldn't have learnt to swim, would they? They wouldn't have taken swimming lessons like we do today. People don't think outside the box. People just assume that that what we have today is exactly the same as what we've always had. There were loads of people can't swim in destitute parts of the world where they're brought up where there's no water. It's ridiculous to think that they would swim. Anyway, it's fine. There will be people who will have built boats. They would have built boats because there would have been people who lived by the sea and would have gone out and got fish and would have created some kind of rafty thing and gone out. So when you explore other areas of the world and you see new people there and you're like, whoa, how did these people get here? Oh, duh, they floated there and that's where they settled. There would have been people that survived the flood. The majority would have been wiped out. But it's interesting, because when you go back to these other nations, in Indian tribes and African tribes, Australian tribes and all sorts of places, most of these people in their history, in their writings and everything, talk of a great flood that wiped out and they had to settle somewhere. Funny, isn't it? How all these stories and all these places have talks of floods, but science still doesn't believe in the flood. Well, I believe in the flood. That's my opinion. And please feel free to write comments and tell me what you think, because I'm sure you will. And I will try and reply to every single comment, no matter how bad or good it is. Okay? I tend to reply to every single comment, okay? Unless it's just a smiley face, then I don't bother. But, you know, like it if you like this video. Subscribe if you like the channel. I try and bring out this kind of content every month or so. Subscribe if you like it. If you share it with your friends, if you've been sent this video and you like it and you think, wow, I'd like to send that to someone else, you send it to someone else, subscribe to my channel, you'll see more videos. Watch some of my other videos, see what you think, and hopefully we can expose the truth over time. I know there's loads of these channels out there that expose this kind of stuff and they don't see any action. But I'm writing a feature film and we're filming a feature film. And right now we're in production, and that's going to expose a lot of stuff. And watch this space. GodTech Movie. I'll put a link at the bottom of my words now. godtechmovie.com. You should go and have a look. It's going to talk about a lot of things, and also we don't get any funding to make our film. We're not being sponsored by any big company at the moment. We have got the distribution by a big company, so that's good. But we haven't got the funding all to make the film completely. So if anyone is interested in giving money towards our cause, giving money into GodTech Movie, then just send us a message on the channel and we'll get in touch with you and we'll tell you how to go about doing this, because any funding we get is from private funders, people that really feel they want to expose certain subjects into the cinemas. It's going to be amazing. Watch this space and keep going, and we'll see how it goes. Lovely to speak to you all. See you on the next recording. Bye bye.